Greetings, peace, everybody. This is Kim, Community Radio. Today is Tuesday. I do apologize for signing on very late in the show. There's only about 23 minutes left in the show. I had some other things to attend to of importance. However, I will try to continue out the last few minutes of the show. I do see that there is one caller that's kind of holding on. I guess you just maybe have it playing in the background. But today I was going to speak on psychic abilities. And the reason I chose this topic is kind of a continuation from yesterday's show on divination and divination tools. And also because last night we had the women's call, and it was a really good call. Sister Michelle hosted that call. Thank you, Sister Michelle. And we started to talk about some of the experiences we've had, since we were kids that maybe our family didn't recognize or kind of downplayed it a bit, or just kind of made it seem like it was unimportant, or that the person was crazy or whatever. So today we were just going to I was going to see if you all would like to share some of those experiences you may have had, because they are important. And oftentimes, as children, these things are suppressed in us. So we continue on with our adult life and try to kind of ignore these things, even though they still may be happening, or we just may not give them the respect and the credence that they deserve. So we were just going to talk about that, as kids, especially children, because they are less tainted as we are, as adults, they're more open to these experiences than we are as adults. And, I've heard stories and have experienced myself, children saying that they have dreams, they have visions, they can, feel certain things. They have all of these unexplained things that are going on with them that nobody really nurtures or pays attention to. And that's a really cruel thing to do as children, to kind of just make them feel like, oh, you're just crazy, or that really didn't happen. Children can pick up on these things, and even as adults, we pick up on it, but we may just ignore it, or, we just kind of brush it off or blow it off. When the spiritual world is trying to communicate with us all the time, we just don't pay it much attention until, those messages and things get a little bit louder, or until things in our life get so difficult that we're like, okay, now I got to find some answers here. So we were just going to talk about that a little bit. A lot of the ladies in the group shared some things that are pretty much common to us all, as we went through these things as kids, where even now as adults, when we try to explain them to family members or whatever, they'll even just say, I don't remember that. If you try to say, how don't you remember when I was, 5 or whatever, this happened, I asked you about it, they'll just kind of say, I don't remember that. That didn't happen. And so it's like, I don't know if they really do feel like those things really didn't happen, or if they really didn't remember, or if they're just really trying to brush it off. And sometimes these things happen because by ignoring a lot of the issues and problems that we have growing up, even within our families and with the adults around us, those fears and secrets and everything that were kind of brushed under the rug, that aren't spoken about, that aren't mentioned, those spirits have grown. And as we've learned in the training, spirits don't generate energy on their own necessarily. They have to be fed. So if you have like certain family secrets that are hiding, molestation or, other types of problems going on in the family, their fear of facing, those uh, those problems and not talking about them is a way of that spirit to gain more energy and to actually feed. So just as we feed things to the Orisha and to other energies that we work with, fear is another way of feeding a spirit, and it's like, I mean, it's like a B12 shot, a B6 shot, whatever that is. It gives it more energy, and they get stronger and stronger. And children can pick up on it. Even adults pick up on it. But I don't. I just think that, it's grown so huge, or the problem has gotten so large that we just kind of turn a blind eye to it and try to act as if it doesn't exist. So these things kind of haunt children a little bit. And this has happened to me quite often as a child. And this is why spiritual cleansings are so good and so much needed. Not only just cleaning yourself spiritually, doing head washes or taking salt baths, all these things that we do. Not only is it good for the person, but we also have to do these things to our homes. Sometimes, we may grow up in a house that maybe a couple of generations of families, of your family have lived in, or that, your family has lived in for 30 plus years or, 20, 30 years. And so those spirits and energies have created a space in that house. The same way that we erect shrines and altars, those shrines and altars are like portals or meeting places for those spirits to come through. So if I create like an Oshun shrine or Oshun altar, I'm constantly feeding that energy in a particular place in the house or outside, so that spirit knows that when I call on it or when I'm feeding it to come through in that particular spot. So the same thing happens with a house. It contains spirit. And if you watch like horror movies or anything like that, you'll see that often. A family will move into a house and one of the children, usually it's a child, will pick up on, entities or spirits that have kind of haunted the house for so long. I was watching the movie Beloved a few weeks ago, and that's kind of what that movie is about. It's like the spirit that just would not leave the house. And it took some very powerful women to get together to come and try to dispel that energy that was in that home, because it started to affect everybody that lived in it. And so the same thing happens with our own houses. This is why we do floor washes, why we sage things, put iron fillings and things around the house, all different types of stuff. And you've probably, seen family members do these things, and maybe they don't know why. Especially me growing up in the South, I've seen like a lot of things like this kind of go on, but they just kind of dismiss it and say, oh, that's what, grandma used to do, or that's what such and such used to do, so that's why I'm doing it. But these things happen. And again, if you just watch most horror stories are really kind of more psychological than gory. They almost always have to do with some repressed spirit, or somebody was killed in the house, or something traumatic happened in the house that was never dealt with. And maybe the family just kind of up and moved or whatever. There are several movies about that. Beloved is one. If you watch, the latest American Horror Story, that's like one of my favorites. They talked about this. And the same thing can happen on land. And so incidents like, what was that incident that happened? I forget what state it was in, where a school was shot up. This has happened in several places. And people can't understand, why would this happen? It's such a nice, quiet neighborhood and all these type of things. It's because the land wasn't properly cleansed. Maybe people had been hanged or murdered or slaughtered on that land. The spirits were never put to rest properly. those things that spirit continues to linger in that land. And you can feel this sometimes when you visit different states. I know here in the South, like it's a very heavy energy. You can definitely feel it. Every time I visit, when I go to Louisiana or, certain small towns like that's further south, it's like a heavy, heavy energy that you can definitely feel. And so, since there really is no concept of time in the spiritual world, these layers of, I guess, what you can call existence, or these layers of periods of times are just kind of stacked onto each other. It never really goes away, just because maybe in this time in 2017, like you live here, this underlying energy or spirit is still lingering there, even though it may have happened 100 years ago, 200 years ago. This is why, the bombing of the church in Alabama with the 4 little girls, people say that they can, still go by the church and see the little girls in the window, or, things like this. You hear about all these hauntings and all these stories. I think, was it The Conjuring? Is another movie where this team of this husband and wife kind of go and check out the house and all this other kind of stuff to see what kind of paranormal activity is going on there. So, back in the old days, well, maybe even still now, when you move into a new space, usually they would have like a pastor or a preacher or somebody to come by. We used to do like house blessings. They even still have like those incense and aerosol sprays, house blessing. But people would come by and clean and bless the house and pray over the house before moving in. And that's because, those spirits and everything still kind of linger around, and they want to clear that energy out. So anyway, I was just going to kind of get into that. We're going to continue this conversation on tomorrow, since the show is airing daily now. We'll get back into that. And again, I know some of you have come to rely on the fact that, we have these shows every Tuesday and Thursday. And again, I do apologize for calling in late. I had some other things to deal with, and to have some other things to come up. So we'll continue the conversation on tomorrow. So if you have anything that you would like to share that's about maybe some psychic abilities that your children possess, and that things that you've experienced as a child or even now, feel free to call in and share those experiences tomorrow. Again, it's something that's really important, and often we kind of douse that energy in our children, and we just kind of explain it away, or just say, "Oh, you really didn't see that," or "that really didn't happen." And, it's a cruel thing to do to children, to make them think that they're hallucinating or they're crazy, or something like that. Because again, children are much cleaner and not as exposed, and they haven't accumulated a lot of the grime that we have as adults. So they're more open to it. So if your children are expressing these things to you, make sure you listen. Recently, even with my daughter, she has been working through phase 1 of the training. And something that I shared with the ladies last night is even before she did that, and it's so interesting because this is something, I guess, because she sees me doing all these rituals and things, is fairly normal to her. Now she doesn't really discard it or anything, but there's an owl that's close to our home, close to where we live, where every time we would go out, she would be the only one to spot this owl all the time. And she would always say, "Oh, no, there's an owl, and everywhere we go around town or wherever, she always seems to see these owls. And so sometimes when she'll point it out, I'm like, "Oh, sure is," and I would say, "Oh, yeah." And so she started to see it so frequently that she she named the owl Elliot. And so she's like, "Oh, there's Elliot," or whatever. And recently she did the first exercise in the training, and I know that's a tough exercise for a lot of people. They have to, the things that they have to go through in that exercise. It's one of the most difficult ones. People kind of get spooked by it a little bit, but she actually did the exercise on her own. And one of the first things that she saw when she was doing the exercise was an owl. So it wasn't, a surprise to me or anything. It actually wasn't a surprise to her, but I didn't tell her, to expect to see anything or what she should expect to see, but this is what she saw. So I thought that was really interesting that she saw this owl. So, a lot of times I think, a lot of us have an affinity towards different animals or whatever, and certain things only pop up or only show up just for you. And for her, it was an owl. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But let me take this call really quick before the show's over with. This is 401. 401, greetings.
Hi, Sister Kim. This is Danetta.
Peace. This is who?
Danetta.
Oh, peace, Danetta. How are you?
I'm fine. When you were sharing about feeding energies and secrets, and you had your example for fear, my question was, and this always crossed my mind, also letting go of the past. I wrote down my thoughts so I can be a little organized, not over the place. So I wrote my thoughts down a little bit. But my question was, this is the reason why some people can't let go of the past, is because they fed those secrets or they fed those fears, because as adults, it seems like it's hard to let go of certain events in your life, And I was wondering, is that the reason why it's hard to move on and let go of the past when you become older?
I think maybe sometimes those things it's so conditioned within us to kind of ignore it or to just kind of not think about it. If I don't think about it, it'll just go away. That I think, or, even as adults, like we get so busy just with just day-to-day things. I got to get up, pay the bills, go to work, take care of the kids, cook, clean. We get so busy or inundated with just day-to-day life that something, traumatic or whatever that has happened to us, we just kind of push to the back, or just push it further down in our subconscious because we don't want to deal with it. It's just like, on top of everything else, I got to deal with this. Now I'll deal with that later. And so we never really properly address it until maybe something or someone comes into your life to kind of trigger it. And it pops out again, even stronger, while we may have, anger issues towards certain things. Or, I think Chief even used an example once in a show where he says, you may associate certain behaviors with an event and don't know why you don't like certain things. Like, maybe you say you don't like to go fishing. Well, it's not necessarily that you don't like to go fishing. Maybe, your parent or your father or somebody never took you fishing, or maybe they promised you that they would do it and never did it, and you got so hurt behind it that you associate the actual act of fishing with that hurt. So it just becomes this thing like, oh, I don't like to do that, or not. That's not something I like to do.
I'm sorry. Can I ask you this question? Okay, so what about the behavior of not letting go? I mean, of course, I understand the part you can store things deep inside you and not remember, or and don't understand why you don't have why you don't like certain things. But the reason why I share this, the reason why I ask you this question, because it is so hard for me, in my behavior, to let go of the past, and I look at my childhood a lot, and I've seen, and I realize as I'm, gotten older, that I had a lot of resentment, towards, my mother or my father, or certain things that I've seen when I was a kid that I shouldn't have seen, but I've seen it, and or the responsibility of being the oldest and being mature so fast at an early age. you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I get into relationships and people make mistakes, I mean relationships like friends, you know, cousins, all types of relationships, and they make mistakes. I remember those mistakes. Like, it's hard for me to let those mistakes go. And I was wondering when you said that sometimes we feed certain energies and we keep these deep secrets, that maybe also that might relate to a behavior of not letting go certain events that happen to you. You know, am I making sense?
Yeah. I think I understand. I think that what you're saying is very true. I've dealt with this and am dealing with this currently. Again, sometimes, you know, those things that we had to go through, or everything that we were exposed to or whatever, it becomes part of our personality. You know what I mean? And we we extend that personality out towards everybody in our circumference. And so, I think it is a way. The fact that we continue to do it, and that we don't face it or don't let it go or don't change behavior, that is another way of feeding that energy. Definitely. Yeah, definitely is.
And I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
Now you said sometimes homes can't hold energy, and this is my thoughts on my own. I didn't read anything about it, but I always felt like, you know, most of the homes are built out of wood, and you know, I always been fascinated with trees, especially when I was a kid. The way they used to, when they wave side to side, and the sound they make, and everything else, but you know, from my understanding, based on my own thoughts, trees to me hold energy. So a lot of these homes, they can embody our energy, correct? Because they're made out of wood.
Definitely. Trees hold tons of memories. You know, just think about the lifespan of a tree. You know, even as I was talking about, like, you know, when I travel further south, how you can feel that energy and how it's just so heavy. And I think that that's a huge part of it, because, you know, in the South, of course, we have more trees, and these are very, very old trees. And just think about, you know, how many people may have been hung from those trees, or how many, you know, what type of thing went on. So there's definitely memory that's held in the natural elements. Definitely. That's one of the reasons why when we do spiritual work, we always include something natural. Like, you're always encouraged or told to, like, when you're building a shrine or whatever, to use natural materials, wood, ceramic, glass, clay, you know, things like that still have some of the natural energy within it. And so definitely, if our homes are built of wood, of course, it's absorbing all of the energy that is put out in it. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's like you can feel like you can, you know, rearrange furniture, you can paint, you can do all these renovations to a house, but the frame is still carrying a lot of that energy. So no amount of...
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad. Go ahead.
No amount of...
I was going to share
a story,
so I'm going to let you finish. Okay.
No, go ahead.
I get a little hyper when I come on the show. So, my grandmother gave me an antique sofa, and it's been something that she had since she was 15. She bought when she had her first place, when she first moved out and she got married. And I brought it into my home, and my great aunt had it. My great aunt, she had it in her home for many years until she passed on. And I have always loved this sofa, and my grandmother was going to get rid of it, and I was like, no, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to take it home. I'm going to get it reupholstered. So I brought it into my home, but I never thought of cleansing it or nothing of the such. And for some reason, it weighed very, very heavy. This sofa it was something about the sofa. The burden of the sofa was very heavy on me, and I couldn't understand why. Until the past year, a lot of events that took place in my life. This last year, it was really a lot of little stuff that took place, and I had to get rid of the sofa. But when I got rid of it, I felt like a burden had lifted off of my shoulder. It felt refreshing. To this day, I don't have no sofa in my living room, but just the thought of not having that sofa in my house anymore is easy on my mind. And I couldn't understand why it was so heavy. Like why the attachment to the sofa was so, like it was a burden. I don't know how to put it in words, but I know the feeling. It was very heavy. You know?
Yeah, family heirlooms are interesting. You know, we always feel like we should pass down things to our families, you know, not really understanding that maybe it's not a great idea all the time. You know, we don't think about the energy or whatever that is kind of absorbed into whatever it is that we're passing down. We just see it as, you know, giving something, you know, and of trying to pass something down to our family members that we cared about. You know, it's interesting, you know, from jewelry to, you know, a house, whatever it may be, you know what I mean? They hold energy, just like sacred objects do. When we create gree bags or, you know, mojo bags or whatever, like they hold energy. Those heirlooms and things hold energy the same way. And yesterday on the call, we had a lady that called in that was speaking about trying to hold on to something that her parents left behind, and the siblings and things are fighting over it. And my advice was to her was, it may just be time to just let it go, because it's causing so many problems amongst the family. Like, just let it go sometimes. And this is one of the reasons why, is because think about the energy that's held over whatever the object was, you know, all the fighting and bickering and everything that's going on over that particular object. Now, when you finally get it, what do you have? You know, what is stored in that particular object? It may not be in your best interest to keep it. And I know that, you know, we all want to leave something to our children and all of this kind of stuff, but sometimes objects may not be the best thing. You know what I mean? Just like we were talking about, like with the house or whatever, those things absorb so much energy, and we don't think about the negative energy that it may hold. You know, we only think about the good thing. This was the first car I ever had. You know, I'm giving you this car, or this is my first whatever. You know, we just want to pass it. Yeah, because of our attachments, exactly.
Yeah.
And we want to give our children or give our relatives something that we, you know, have these attachments to as, you know, some type of memorabilia. But sometimes it's not always a great thing to do. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that it's a horrible thing to do, because you can pass things on. You know, people do that like with wedding dresses and, you know, the whole something old, something new, borrowed and blue, you know, that whole thing. You know, people create customs and stuff around things like that. But sometimes it may not be a good thing to do. You know what I mean? Again, like I said, I'm watching, I like scary movies or horror movies, whatever you want to call them, but not because of the gore. It's just because I find that most of those type movies deal with psychological, you know, issues. And you see that all the time. Somebody will leave a spirit board behind, or somebody will leave a doll or something behind, or somebody will, you know, or something like that, or something's in the house, and, you know, the spirit of that object just starts to wreak havoc to everybody in the house, you know. And I think it's just something that we really need to kind of pay attention to, or just acknowledge, or just even have the proper tools to clean the object, or to, you know, just deal with the energy of it, because it can become stronger. You know, your house can become a tomb, you know, so to speak, where, you know, these energies just kind of gestate and get heavier and heavier and heavier. And like I said, you can paint, you can rearrange furniture, you can, you know, do all these things, but the energy of the place is still there, on top of whatever went on that particular plot of land, you know, hundreds of years ago. All of that is contributing. You know, I don't know how many people even research, like when they move to a new place or move to a new neighborhood or something.
The area,
yeah. Do they ever like research the area to see if anything traumatic happened in that particular place? And because we live in the United States, and because of the, you know, the slave trade and everything, like there's stuff everywhere. You know, recently they found in New York, I think is in, you know, the Wall Street district, the Wall Street area or whatever, that is most of New York is built on a slave burial, you know, a slave cemetery. And so, you know, just think about that. You know, you have to wonder, did the people that built something that has to do with the financial strength of this country on the backs of our ancestors, were they aware of that? You know what I mean? Because I've actually seen documentaries where this is known. This is a common practice. I've seen there was one particular documentary where they spoke about different areas where, I don't know, a particular indigenous group used to live, and that if that group took that ground or regarded that ground as sacred, where they, you know, did a lot of rituals or, held religious ceremonies, certain groups that would come to conquer those people would purposely build churches on top of that land. And because the indigenous people still knew about the sacredness of the ground, like they would still come and perform certain ceremonies and things there, just because they remember that spot. But you've got a church built right on top of it where other people are practicing their spirituality and their religion right on top of it. So you have to kind of wonder, do they know about that energy? Are they transmuting that energy for their own benefit? You know what I mean? Think about it, like thousands of bodies, under Wall Street. How can you take that energy and take the energy of those spirits and things and turn it into something for prosperity for another group of people? Like, these are things that I don't know if people really pay attention to or have researched. It's just something, I think about this stuff quite often.
Right.
Yeah, and so, again, last night we were just talking in the women's group about, just different psychic abilities, how people can kind of pick up on different things. Some people are clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, all this telepathic. There's so many different ways that people are gifted with a way to kind of tune into the spiritual world that we don't necessarily honor, or respect in them. And these things continue on through your adult life. You just kind of ignore it or just say, I really didn't see that. How many times have you been sitting around and you see something out of the corner of your eye?
Yes.
And just be like, oh, that was nothing. I just got something in my eye.
Maybe it was a shadow.
Yeah, it was a shadow or a fly or something like that. Wasn't anything.
Right.
So we do it all the time. You know what I mean? And never really give it the proper respect. And sometimes, just by doing that, it's like we're feeding it. It gets louder and louder. Then we start to hear sounds in the house. Oh, that's just the house settling. We'll say something like that. Then we'll start to hear voices, or whatever. Oh, I was just, I was dreaming, or maybe the radio was on, maybe that's the TV. Or, we do a lot of things to just kind of dismiss it. And so the noises and the things, all that stuff, it gets louder and louder and louder. And even when we talk about manifesting things or bringing something from the unseen world into the real world, we have to give it a lot of energy.
That's true.
To bring it to fruition. So, like, even if we're trying to start a business or whatever it is we may desire, we put a lot of thought behind it. We may do rituals. Yes. We take all the physical actions needed, filing paperwork, all this other kind of stuff to get it to actually become, go from a thought to an actual thing. Well, we do the same thing when it comes to spirits. So we keep feeding and feeding and feeding. Now that particular spirit has gained enough energy to manifest itself. Maybe now it can move objects in the house. One of the ladies shared on the call last night, like sometimes they could, times when they've been, in bed, like as a child, they can feel somebody else in the bed, or they feel the covers, coming up around them, or, just things just become louder, or like I said, then they start to actually see these spirits, So,
you know what,
yeah.
Sister Kim, you know what that really is like a catch-22 for me. When I was a kid, my mother used to always say, "Don't go walk under the ladder. You get years of bad luck."
Mm-hmm.
But then when you smell a person that passed on, you can smell they scent in the house. Oh, that's something that is in your mind, or maybe it's one of her old robes that's in the closet, or and no, I smell this scent all the time, and they'll brush it off. But yet you'll say stuff like, "Don't break a mirror, you get 7 years of bad luck," or my mother wouldn't allow me to name my first daughter after her sister because she thought it was taboo. Oh, don't do that, because sister died at an early age. She died like when she was an infant, and she's like, don't do that. But yet, my mother would say, but yet I can't. But yet when I smell my great aunt's scent in your home, or when I tell you I have a dream, or when I can, somewhat feel something. Most of it's feeling, and we really knock down the sense of feeling. You can feel it, but you don't understand it. You don't put it in words. But you tell me just, oh, you had a thought of that person, or it's just something that or emotion, or some kind of emotion must creeped up when you were sleeping. No, this is some real stuff. So
well,
I never
you have those things that are so-called acceptable within a culture and certain things that aren't. So, usually, especially with us, a lot of those things that we used to do, we kind of associate with being backwards or primitive, or, we disregard it because that's just old hoodoo stuff. You know what I mean? But, breaking a mirror or something like that, that's accepted within a certain culture. That's their belief. So it gets kind of projected onto us, and we start to adopt those same taboos and, things like this, but completely disregard everything else, because we haven't accepted those things, or we don't want to acknowledge those things. I have, we all kind of experience that, where we'll see a family member doing something or whatever, and there's no explanation of why. It's just, oh, grandma used to do it, or, whatever, or they won't speak about it, but they'll do it anyway.
Yes.
So it's just, what's considered acceptable in a certain culture, or what's not accepted in a certain culture, that we start to kind of develop these things, which is why we ignore them. A lot of people ignore their dreams. A lot of people, ignore a lot of things where spirits are trying to communicate with them, And it's really sad, because it's like, think about just how many ancestors we've lost, or how many people we've lost just being in this country, and they are just waiting for us to kind of tap into them. Talk to me. I'm trying to get this message to you. And then think about those people who know those energies are there, and know, have the knowledge of this stuff, and they're using it against us. They're doing these rituals all the time. Things like putting your family member on a dollar bill. Think about how many times money exchanges hands, and how much energy is tied up in money. You're passing around an image with all these occult symbols and things on it between each other. All the things that you think about, how much money you have to save up to buy a house or whatever, and you're exchanging this type of energy, someone else's ancestor printed on the medium that you need to obtain the house. You know, you walk into banks or walk into certain businesses, you'll see pictures, huge oil paintings and things of the owner's family members in the hallways. Right. You know, people erect fountains and things in squares where they, you know, where people come and throw money in and make wishes. Well, what are you doing?
You know, I never thought of that, of the money being exchanged and the picture of, I want to say oppressor being on it, and how it ties down to we still being oppressed and just done in a different way, you know.
It's done in a very different way.
And tying our energy down to it, our attention, everything else, and got us slavery all over again in a totally, I think, deeper and more powerful way than before.
Yeah, it's a ritual. It's a flat out ritual. Think about, you know, a fountain. You know, these fountains that are erected like maybe in a town square or something where people throw, you know, wishes, make wishes and things. That think about what this is. Like these statues and things, they're erected, they're maintained, they're cleaned. They constantly have water flowing. You know, water is a huge medium. That's why we use it all the time in rituals. Water is constantly flowing. People are using copper, which copper is an element that we use definitely to connect to spirits and energies. You're throwing copper into this water, you know, that holds memory and holds imprint and is a vehicle for communication. They hold ceremonies around these fountains. They, you know, write the names of the people on the fountains and what they did and how long they lived and when they died and all these kind of things. Like there are entire ceremonies around these types of things, and we just go and we dump our money in it, silver, copper, you know, all these natural elements. We throw it into the water.
Make a wish. Make a wish.
Yeah, make a wish and all
throw it in the fountain.
Yeah, and we're not even thinking that we're participating in and venerating or giving energy to a particular ancestor.
Yeah,
of somebody.
True. Oh, girl, you're a smart woman.
I
never thought of that.
You know, so it's a lot of different things that we do that we're just not aware of, you know, that we're doing, you know, spiritually and ritually. Like if you tell a Christian person or somebody that says that, you know, this is pagan and that's of the devil and blah, 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 look, you're doing it too. You're participating in these rituals with the, you know, with all these people who may have oppressed you. So there are small things that we do, even though we may try to denounce a certain religion or whatever because we know of, you know, the history of it with our people and all this other kind of stuff. But there are other things done that they ensure to keep a particular energy alive. You know what I mean? I often think about like just the whole existence of the Catholic Church and what it's about. You know, they demonize a lot of things that have to do with what they call, you know, you think about the witch trials and Constantine and all these crusades and things that were waged against people who were practicing some of this stuff. Well, at the same time, they were stealing their heirlooms, they were stealing their ritual objects, and the Catholic Church does mass rituals all the time.
Yes, they do, all the time.
And when
I went to a Catholic school.
Yeah. And when you see these movies like The Exorcist and all this other kind of stuff where they're trying to drive out the demon in somebody, it's like, you know, I always thought, I said, you know, this is the importance of this is them trying to tap into what they want to call witchcraft or magic to deal with their own ancestral karma. Like this stuff doesn't go away. So if you've been in a family that participated in the slaughter of so many people, where do they think the spirit of that person that was doing the killing goes? Because we know that an ancestor, but every time we have a child, an ancestor comes back. So if that particular ancestor possesses your 5-year-old daughter or Emily Rose or whoever it may be, and these things start to come out and start to happen, now we got to, do an exorcism. We got to try to drive this demon out. And so I'm like, that whole institution, I think, is just kind of built on people trying, a certain group of people trying to resolve their karma, doing rituals and going all over the place, stealing people's ritual items and objects to try to get knowledge of how to deal or how to put to rest their own wicked spirits.
Deeds. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, I have another question.
Mhm.
Okay, so letting go the behavior, letting go the past. What would you recommend the first step to do? Because that's something I feel like, Chief talks about, your spiritual work, like these things can affect your spiritual work. And I don't want nothing that, I'm still working on it, and it's very strong in my personality. And I don't want it to affect anything I'm doing growing spiritually. You know what I'm saying? I'm making sense?
Yes. I think the first thing to do is just to acknowledge what it is you're running away from or what it is you're trying to suppress. That's the first thing. And believe me, you're not the only one dealing with this. We all are.
Right.
And that's why phase 1 is ministry to self, to try to work all of that out before you start trying to invoke spirits and invoke this or that, to do certain things. So it's like, I think that's the first step, is just acknowledgement of saying, okay, I'm this way because of whatever, or I have this problem or this issue. And so once you acknowledge that you do have that issue, now it's just time to, do the work to eradicate it, to change the behavior. Because it's not something that you want to hold on to or pass down. You know what I mean?
Yes. Can I give you a good example? I know you have to go. You have to go?
Okay. No, go ahead.
Okay. It was years ago. I realized I used to go to therapy all the time. Been going to therapy since I was 8 years old. And the reason why I started so young, because my grandmother felt, I had lived with my grandmother for, a certain amount of years. And because my mother felt like she was putting too much pressure on me at an early age. And what scared her was I didn't have no expression. Like I would hold a lot in and not say anything.
Okay.
And so I lived with my grandmother for a little bit. And she also had that concern. She was like, "Oh, Danetta don't have no she don't have no expressions. Like she's just quiet." And I did behave. I didn't like getting in trouble. No one likes to get spankings, So I did behave, and I did do what I'm told. And then they don't know, a lot of times in my mind what I was doing, I would live another life in my head. They didn't know that. They thought that, but I would conjure up something. I was somewhere else doing something else. If I was in church, I wasn't listening. I was behaving, sitting still. But to me, my little purse or my little toy was a computer, and I'm typing away what the pastor is saying. Just trying to play in my mind a lot so I won't get in trouble. But so she took me to counseling, and I've been going to counseling on and off. Whenever I feel like I need to vent or talk or get it out, I go. And it's always been a safe haven for me to express. It's not really like they give you any advice, but just to get the burden off your shoulders. It feels so good, and there's no judgment. And if she does judge me, I don't know this woman, and I'm paying her, so it doesn't really matter to me. But then it clears my mind, helped me see the bigger picture. So what I have learned was, I was angry. I was angry with my mother. I was angry with my father. And I was angry with the choices they made. And I had went through a period that, I had talked to my mother, and I said, after 3 kids, why you just didn't stop getting pregnant? Why you didn't stop after number 2? Why you just kept going on and on and on? Like, what kept you getting pregnant by this man who just wasn't good? He just wasn't good. Even though my father wasn't good, he was a hero to me. I'm not going to lie to you, Sister Kim. I'm a hero. Like, I love my father to death.
And you know what? Just to be fair, you really don't know what went on in the relationship. So I wouldn't even just blame the father. You know, that may be something that your mother projected to you, that he was just not good. But children pick up on it. Yeah,
he showed me when I got
older.
Things.
Right.
He showed me a little bit of himself when I got older, because I never listened to my mother when she talked about him. She always say, "Well, you'll see when you get older. You'll see when you form your own relationship with him." And I did. And he did some stuff that made me say, "Okay, my mother, she's right about some things. I need to take a back seat a little bit." But I still, you know, had an attachment to my dad. Because nobody's perfect. My mother wasn't perfect either.
And she still continued to have children by this horrible man.
Right,
so something is wrong with her.
So I was trying to get down to the nitty-gritty, like the behavior of her being attached to him and having kids with him, and then is affecting all of us, like me all the way down to my younger sister. So I'm like, what made you keep going on? And then I had this anger inside of me that I had to vent out to her, you know, and she never heard me say any of these things. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm angry. I'm hurt by him, because the first man you ever fall in love with is your father. You know, I'm angry and disappointed at things, my personal relationship with him, that he could have worked on, that he didn't work on. You know, and I realized that sometimes when it comes down to choosing a mate or choosing good, healthy relationships, you don't know how, because those first relationships when you was a child play a big part on you forgiving and letting go. And I don't want to attach nothing that's bad. Like my soul would tell me to leave that person alone. But I would still give to that person that my soul told me is not good, or they're not where you at mentally, or they're not even close on how you feel about your family. They're not even close to that, how they feel about their own. So I don't know how to listen to that. You guys call it the Ori, am I correct? Okay. I don't know how to listen to it. I don't know how to make it stronger. I don't know how to just let it lead me and heal from holding on, because I think this is a behavior I'm learning from childhood that I brought into my adulthood, and just learn how to let go that behavior, because it's a behavior that's been growing and growing and growing, and I attach myself to things that aren't good. Because, you know, of that behavior of not letting go, or what if, or sometimes grudges. I never forget, and I had a friend that I grew up when I was 15, and we're still friends today, and I brought up something that she had did to me, and she goes, "I can't believe you remember that." And we're like 38 years old. And when she said it to me, I had to laugh. I said, "Yeah, I remember down to every scene in my mind." I don't want to be prisoner to it no more, Sister Kim. I don't want to be prisoner to those thoughts, to those feelings. And I want to start working on that.
Well, you're in the right place to do it. When we talk about our Ori holds our soul, which our soul is never tainted or is never corrupted. Your spirit is what can be corrupted and changed all the time, changes all the time. So when your spirit and your soul aren't in alignment with each other or in agreement with each other, this is when we start to make these crazy decisions. And so sometimes, like the situations that we're born into or the things that we experience are orchestrated by the soul for you to learn certain things. So sometimes even the bad relationships, what we call bad relationships, or why would I choose this, knowing that it's not the right thing to do. Or sometimes those things are orchestrated for you to learn certain things. You know, sometimes some of us have to take learn it the hard way. And so we have to go through these horrible experiences to finally get it, or get to a place where we're like, oh, okay, I surrender to this now. You know, I gotta get this straight. I can't keep doing this. And so I wouldn't even necessarily necessarily, call some of the label some of the experiences bad. It's just you weren't listening or you weren't aware of what was going on. I wouldn't even put it on that particular person. It's just how you reacted to the situation based on your history. You know what I mean? So,
yep.
In order to strengthen the Ori, of course, there are rituals and things to do on Cthulhu House. There are rituals to do in grasping the root of divine power. I
was looking that up last night. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking up that last night.
Yeah. So
I said this book has to start being my Bible.
Yeah.
This book has to be my Bible. Yep.
Mm-hmm. We just have to, you just have to kind of start to connect the ritual and what you're doing to real life. And I know, like, just being of Western mind, that's hard for us to do because we just see it as a series of things and poof, something's going to happen, like magic's going to happen, and I'm just not going to do it anymore. But it takes both, you have to connect exactly what you're doing and the ingredients that you're using and all these words that you're saying. You have to connect that to what it is you're really trying to do. What does it mean when I keep saying Orisa on me, Orisa on me, Orisa on me? Why am I repeating this three? Like in some Adoras, you repeat certain things 3 times, 21 times.
Right.
Whatever. You keep saying Mopel, Mopel, Mopel. You keep telling this energy to come down, show up, show up, show up, show up, show up, show up. And you repeat it over and over and over and over again. It's because you're trying to actually connect what it is you're doing to the actual physical act of what you're doing, because all the ingredients and everything are symbolic. They have, characteristics and things of, like, salt, cleanses things. Why are we using salt water? So there's a reason why you're using salt water, or there's a reason why you're using fresh, cool water. So you have to just kind of think about, why am I using fresh, cool water? Why not hot tap water? You know what I mean? So you just have to kind of connect the actual ritual or the physical act of what you're doing to what you're trying to do. Now, of course, even in the second exercise in the training is mind, body, soul, and spirit. Well, that's first exercise, where you learn the difference between all of these things, because there's a difference between, a lot of people use soul and spirit interchangeably. They're different. It's different from your mind. It's different, all these are different components. They're different parts of your Ori. Everything can be, broken down to almost like a minute level. It's like, that's, Ifa means to scratch or to go beneath the surface. So even when you say Ori, there are different parts of the Ori. So you can specify certain things. You know what I mean? So the training and everything kind of gives you those tools. Again, it's, ministry to self, trying to get yourself straightened out first, so you know what you're doing when you're trying to connect to a certain spirit. Why am I connecting to Oshun? I don't even really get it. Like, what does she do? Or what does it do? What is that energy? I want some money. Okay, give it to me, Oshun. We're not really cognizant of that particular energy or the physical actions that we have to do in this reality to allow that Oshun energy to come in and kind of clean up what needs to be cleaned up before we can get it, before we can receive the money. What do I have to do in this reality before I can get it? It's not just going to drop out of the sky. So, again, it's like our westernized thinking kind of just has us so detached from what we do, because, most fundamental Christian, churches or whatever, you do things as seemingly unrelatable. And it's like, I'm going to go, on Sunday and I'll just pray about it. It'll go away. And then I continue whatever behavior it was Monday through Saturday, I
don't understand why you're doing those
and don't
steps.
understand why things are changing, and then say, oh, well, if it's not meant for me, it's not meant for me. You know,
right.
Jesus, when something we want, Jesus did it. When it's something we didn't get, the devil did it. You know what I mean? So we have that kind of attitude about spiritual work, even when we come into like an African system, and that's not how things work in this particular system. So I would suggest.
That's what I love about it, because I love the part where, especially Chief, he talks about taking ownership of your own power and responsibility of you know, your attentions and how important those things are. And you know, I don't want nobody to rape me no more of my own power no more. I don't want to, even to myself, even to my past. I don't want my past to tie me to things that they're not good for me or not good for my family anymore. I don't want it.
Yeah.
It's good conversation.
I understand. Believe me, I understand. You have no idea the timing of this conversation we're having. So thank you as well for, you know, bringing the questions and the thoughts up to be spoken out loud. Yeah.
No, thank you for coming on, because I waited.
I was, you know what? I was thinking, I was like, it's not, I shouldn't even go on. It's like 30 minutes left. It's not even a point. Nobody's probably listening. But then I was like, I can at least come on and issue an apology just to let people know what happened, you know, because, you know, I know that some people tune in to the show frequently, and I'm thankful for that. Part of the reason why the show was created was because I needed it. Probably even more than the people tuning in, to just be able to get some of these thoughts out and to just kind of talk a little bit. So I need it just as much as you do. So I did definitely want to come on and just at least apologize, you know, to you all for coming late, and to let you know that, of course, we're going to, you know, the show is daily now. So right now, it's still at the current time from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern, but the times may change for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you know, but we'll announce that and let you all know. Let me bring in another caller really quick, Danetta. You can still hang on. Just mute your line, and when you want to speak, you can come back in.
Okay.
All right. 813.
Greetings. Thank you guys for the time. It's okay, Sister Kim. I was constantly calling in, trying to wait for you guys to get started. I didn't hear the first half, and I don't understand what happened, but it's all good. We're a community. That's what the show is about, and that's what all I want to say today is that we are a community that are helping each other. And thank you, Sister, for all the information that you put out. It was a wonderful time to listen in and hear and gain wisdoms that you have spoken, and I would like to give thanks for that. And that's what the show is all about, to work together. So I just wanted to chime in on that. I was feeling the energy. I had to say something.
Okay. Thank you, Brother Omar. Thank you for calling back in. When I called in, I think Sister Zanetta was the only person on the line. I think Brother Byron called in and dropped in for a minute, and there's someone else on the line as well that's listening in. So thank you all for hanging with me. Like I said, I had some other things to do. When I came in, it was probably about 30 minutes left in the show, so you didn't miss a whole lot, you know, or whatever. Yeah. But we were going to continue the conversation tomorrow.
What's the proverb? A bundle of sticks is stronger than one stick. I don't know if I'm saying it wrong. I think I'm saying it wrong, but you know. Yeah, you got it. We all here.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Definitely. I definitely appreciate your support. You always come through. Always come through.
Yeah, everybody. I appreciate everybody. I appreciate everybody that makes their time for this moment in time for us. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So everybody, we've actually gone over time. I think like Blog Talk maybe gives us 45 minutes to an hour or something like that after the show has actually ended. So again, I do apologize. We'll be back tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel, 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern, and we'll continue this conversation because I think that probably a lot of callers has some input or insight or want to share something about this particular topic. We were on the phone last night with the women's group, I think, to almost midnight talking about this. Sister Michelle actually had to go because she was taking care of the babies, but she held it down for us in the first half. So we'll definitely talk about this particular topic tomorrow. Again, thank you, Sister Danetta, Brother Anwar, Brother Byron, and I don't know who the other caller is on the line, but thank you, too, for checking back in to see if the show was still rolling, to see if we were still here. I definitely appreciate it. And, again, I apologize for my lateness. And we'll be back tomorrow. All right. Enjoy your day. Peace.